Welcome to World 11 News Channel. Drew Basile did so well in his Jeopardy debut that he got to skip the first round of Tournament of Champions and go right to the semifinals for his return. But the Survivor 45 alum reveals that getting that bye for the quarterfinals ultimately cost him everything. The 24-year-old master student tells Entertainment Weekly that his semifinals matchup on Thursday against quarterfinals winners Drew Basile and Nilesh Venjamuri was not only the hardest matchup of that round, but also that he was too out of practice compared to his opponents who had just won their previous games. But he's still keeping his head held high for finishing in second place with $8,802, bested by Venjamuri's $13,601 earnings. Goins finished in third with $4,000. Entertainment Weekly. How are you feeling about your Tournament of Champions performance? Drew Basile. I'm bummed because I felt so much confidence. I felt so much momentum going into the semifinals. I had defeated Isaac and Adriana in the exhibition match. Adriana for the second time. I thought that if I could get to the finals, I'd have a pretty good matchup against those two. Then I got matched into the group of death. Nilesh is a speed demon on the buzzer. Drew Basile is a fan favorite. He's been playing Jeopardy for 3 weeks at this point, and I'm fresh because I had the bye. I was nervous about that matchup. You really had your work cut out for you in the semifinals. Yeah, I always say Jeopardy, like Survivor, is a physical sport. How much you know is important, but it really comes down to the physical attributes. Do you have the endurance? Do you have the buzzer speed? Are you able to tune in under pressure? And I'm great at all of those things. But these were guys who had been warmed up, and I was fresh off the boat, so it worked against me. Tell me more about that, because your 7-game run on your first Jeopardy appearance earned you a bye to skip the quarterfinals, which should be a good thing. But do you feel like that actually hurt your overall performance in the semifinals? Yeah, too much of a good thing, that's what they say. The thing about the bye was that I kind of could get comfortable. I knew I was through to the semis. I didn't have to work so hard, my ticket was punched. I didn't really study a ton. But that in and of itself didn't matter because I had the most buzzes that game. I'm confident my knowledge base stacks up to anybody. But the bye meant that I had been sitting around in a green room for 3 days without meaningful play. I was tired, I was sluggish, and you're facing 2 guys who are firing on all cylinders, which is difficult. I was close to the top of the hill, but Nilesh really was a mountain. So the bye was painful. You had a rough start, but inched up to second place, going into Final Jeopardy. How were you feeling about your chances at that point? I was feeling good on Final Jeopardy. I'm a clutch player. I was not very good at Final Jeopardy in my initial run. I bombed, statistically one of the worst because it never mattered. But here, when it really mattered, it just came to me and I wrote it down quickly and I looked over and I saw that those guys were puzzling a little bit. So that made me really hopeful. And then when Drew Basile got it wrong, I was like, oh my gosh, we're pulling closer. And then Nilesh at the last second had written down the correct answer. So he punched his ticket, good for him. It was so close, but yet so far. I don't mean to rub salt in the wounds, but how did it feel knowing the other 2 semifinal seeds advanced to the finals and you didn't make it a clean sweep? That was painful. That was the worst part. Adriana and Isaac are great players. I'm sure they're going to be lights out in the finals. But they had easier matchups. I was playing against the 2 best competitors, not seeded, and honestly, probably Drew Basile and Nilesh. They're better than some of that group of Isaac and Adriana and me. So it was a worst-case scenario. I think if I had been slotted into a different game, or if even one of them had been subbed out, I would have had a really good chance. What's something you need to work on if you ever come back to Jeopardy again? I think that Jeopardy is fun. A lot of people say Jeopardy is a sport, and I agree when it means I can showboat when I get a touchdown, but some people treat Jeopardy like a job. They study, they practice, they get their own buzzer system at home. They prep. If I were going to take things to the next level, like say Jeopardy Invitational, that would be the kind of system I would want to implement. I've already been looking at some things like that, some flashcards, getting people to help me. And I'm confident that if we come back, we'll come back invincible. I didn't beat anybody this time, but next time I'll be swinging.